Right now.
Get on there.
Hello. Okay. All right. So I'm going to make you the moderator. Hello. If you're just tuning in, we're just kind of getting set up here still. It'll be a few minutes.
We got Nadim, Augusto.
Hello, everybody. Okay.
And add 4 seconds. Okay, I just skipped the ad. No, you're in.
Oh, Maine is beautiful today, Roberto. Thank you for asking. It's the first nice day we've had in so long, so it's kind of incredible. It's nice, and I'm inside here, and I'm ready to spend some time with you guys. And I'm actually gonna, I think it's right 12 o'clock right now, and so we have a lot to get to today, and so I want to start covering things almost immediately. And so I'll just sort of open by thanking everybody for spending time here with me today. I'm really happy that I got so many portfolios submitted. I had portfolios from around the world, which is just amazing, from as far away as New Zealand. So that's pretty much, that's as you can get. I did receive more than I'll have time to review today. So unfortunately, I won't be able to make it to everybody's. But I am thankful for your willingness to put yourself out there and to participate in this. My wife, Laura, is going to be moderating the chat. I just ask people to keep it respectful, and it's hard putting your work out there in front of people. And I think the hardest criticism to deliver is constructive criticism. It's also the most helpful. Even if I don't make it to your portfolio today and you've submitted one, I think you'll find something useful here. I've structured it in a way that I think it'll be educational for everyone watching. And so we'll just get started by me saying there was a little embedded test in my request for you guys to submit digital portfolios to me. I asked you to submit a digital link. So there was some sort of instructions in the video that I recorded. So if you sent me a digital link, you passed the first test. Amazingly, I still received a number of emails with attached very large PDFs, and if you watch the video, you kind of know what I do with those. So anyhow, that was the first test. The next test was, I said in the video that making a personal connection is really important. So when you're reaching out to share your work with someone, you want to be personable, and the vast majority passed this test too, but I did have a few emails where people just pasted the link to their portfolio in there. And I kind of triage those at the end, so I'm sorry if that was you. But all this really, I bring this up just to say that if you're applying for a competitive position, or if you're trying to market to a client and trying to get work, you want to give, you're trying to get in front of people who are very busy, partners in a firm, and they make decisions quickly, and you don't want to give them a reason to put your work at the bottom of the pile. And there are also others who I recognize having commented on the videos in the past, and so I've made a genuine effort at making, they've made a genuine effort at making a personal connection, and so I've tried to prioritize those to the front too. And none of this is done to penalize anybody, but more just as recognition that everything you do is representative of your brand, whether that's a personal brand or a business brand. And how you treat others and engage with others and build relationships is really important. So that's all. Now there are some themes that have emerged, and I think they'll become apparent as we get into the reviews. And in the interest of time, I'd like to kind of get right into it. I'm going to switch over to, I'm going to start sharing my screen here. Let's do that. Okay. Okay. Now the portfolios to review. I want to preface this by saying I want this critique to be helpful and not harsh. So everything we're discussing is offered just as my advice, kind of through my own lens. And I would encourage you to, process it through your own critical thinking apparatus. And, equally, I hope others in the chat will contribute and help shape this conversation. These will be really brief in reality. And you actually only have a few minutes to make the right impression. And so I think it'll be true to life. We're going to start right here with Jake. So Jake has submitted 2 portfolios. One is an undergrad and one is a graduate portfolio. And I think we're just going to stick with the most recent work, which is the graduate portfolio. So you can see here it's got a sort of title, 2D and 3D. And then we have an opening page here. In total, the portfolio is 49 pages, which seems like a lot to me. We come to this, so a couple of those are intro pages. We come to this 2D, 3D concept intro here, and I'm not sure this is totally necessary. It sort of describes like the premise of how you're breaking down the portfolio. And I think what you want to do is get right into the work if you can. And here again, we come to another page which has a breakdown of, a table of contents. And then we're right into the sketches. The sketches are really nice to see. I think the sketch here on the right is very strong. It's a nice watercolor. I think you have to make sure you prune the sketches and only include your best stuff. I mean, these are all great sketches, but consider if you have 49 pages of portfolio that you have to make some editorial decisions here. My next set of notes here was on page 18 and 19. I'll just walk through this. So we have this big project in the Grand Canyon, and you'll see like these are great graphics, like very strong images, but it's a lot of information to digest. And I think if we're talking about editing things down, I feel like this sheet here, page 18 and page 19, they pair together in this 2-page spread. Really nice work. Like the central perspective image really draws you in. There's great line work here. There's a layering of sketches in this project as well. So I see a nice rendering that's overlaid with some hand sketching. So some nice variety here. I would go back and probably rethink some of this stuff. It's great information, and I'm sure it took a long time to pull together, but it's hard to really digest it in this kind of a format. And this was uploaded to Issue, so this would be you allowed me to download it, so I did, and I'm just looking at it as a 2-page spread as you normally would. Now this elementary school project, I think this was your thesis, great project, and schools are very difficult projects to do, and so kudos to you, difficult work. I did that for a long time. I think these are strong pages, but there's a lot of information. So again, think editorially. As we come down to page 42, that was my next note. Oh, page 40. So we're here. We have some nice models here. I like the range of scale. We're into the 3D section, which you pointed out in the beginning. I like this because there's some craftsmanship here. This might be you. I don't see any evidence of you in the portfolio, but this might be you holding this picture frame. I like this steel and wood combination. It shows a range of skill. You're clearly good at graphically representing what you want to do, and then you've created this stool. So I really like that. And then one of my favorite, and this connecting back to the elementary school project, this is really fantastic because you're taking an abstract idea, your model image, and then you are moving into sort of handrail details and the reality of sort of building that's happening here, and the fact that this is elementary school, and so there's children who have different handrail needs than adults. Like, I think this is fantastic. Just pay attention to the details at the edge here. Like, I would go into Photoshop and delete this. Architects pay attention to that kind of thing. And this process diagram, like, I can never get enough of the process diagrams in things. And this is fantastic. If your portfolio was this and like 2 other projects, that would be enough. There's a question about how many pages is the ideal portfolio. I think what you want to do, and there's a portfolio coming up sort of 2 or 3 from now that I'll say is probably the ideal number of pages, and I'll tell you why that is when we get to it. So I'll put a pin in that one. But this process diagram, great. And this recognizes the fact that we design things, and then we have to confront the reality of what it takes to build them. And so, like, this is super strong. I think what's missing is you don't have a CV in here, and that's fine. It doesn't have to be in your portfolio. But there's also, this idea about a personal connection. I'd like to kind of see who you are, maybe more so than you holding a picture frame. And so I guess I would probably edit this down to 30 pages at max. But great portfolio. Thank you very much for sharing it. I do appreciate that. We're going to move on to the second portfolio here. This is Natish's portfolio. And forgive me if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly. I appreciate you sharing this, Nitish. We open, this one is 63 pages. Now this is, it's too long. 63 pages to wade through this in a short period of time is a lot. It's me flicking pages like this fast, and it's very difficult to do. And I think, you know, this comes down to editing. You have to make some strategic decisions as to what you're going to edit. So let's start with the CV here. I want to make sure everyone is spell checking. You know, a lot of these have some spelling errors, which is fine if these are just drafts, and I know a lot of these are drafts. But if you're putting it out there and sending it to other professionals, spell check is one of those things that other pros are going to pick up on really quickly. I made this mistake applying for jobs before, and it's pretty embarrassing showing up to the interview and having, you know, getting called out on that kind of a thing. I would probably lose this communication skills category. I don't see a lot of relevance in that. Obviously, I think you have to be a good verbal and written communicator. I'm not sure I'd include it here. And I see in your portfolio, there's a lot of this sort of superimposed line work over rendered images, and I definitely see what you're going for with this collage style. But I think sometimes it gets a little bit confusing. And then we have the other end of it, which is we just have these images without a supporting text. And so I think I'd want to see somewhere maybe in between that. You have some text overlaid on this, and then we come to this. There's some of your line work drawings. I really am looking to see who you are as a designer in the portfolio. And for this one in particular, I'm having a little bit of a hard time seeing who that is. I see a lot of technical proficiency, and I realize some of this may be just due to the project here. This is your solar decathlon entry. And when I get to pages like this, I start to zone out. And so I would say, you know, unless this is really integral to your concept, I would say the, oh, we're not seeing the PDF. Oh, bummer. Okay, I'm really sorry. Let me go back. Okay. Let me come back. I'm really sorry, guys. Hold on one sec. I'm gonna come back. Can people see? Okay, hopefully we've got the PDF up now. Thought I was sharing the right window, and I guess I was not. Okay, so if you guys can let me know in the chat if you see this. Basically, okay, cool, sorry about that. Basically what I was saying here, we've talked about the CV. I think you should remove the communication skills from this and do some proofreading work. We have a lot of upfront pages here before we get to any content. We have this collaging overlay style here, which I sort of understand, but I kind of want some in between this kind of a style and this style here, which is just sort of devoid of text and information. I see you're iterating on a design concept here, so somewhere in between. In general, if we had a little more text on this, I think these could be strong images, and I like this quite a bit. I like this kind of rendering quite a bit. Where you start to lose me here are the wiring schematics and things like this, and I think you have to really just, you know, be better about maybe editing some of that stuff out. I'm going to skip ahead here. This is a project that I think you should sort of double down on a little more, the Hanging Gardens housing project. Good range of imagery here, differing scales, you know, model views. We have some rendered images, plans. But then when you start to get a little confused here, we're lacking text. You know, I want to be oriented. I want you to tell me, like, what are the important things I need to be looking at here. It is a strong project. I think you could improve on this, and I think you could strip out a lot of the information and go with, you know, fewer images and maybe a more higher graphical style to convey what you're trying to talk about here. Let's get down to, I'm going to skip ahead to page 40 here. This kind of a thing, I realize this is something you probably did in university to fulfill the construction document requirement. I think when you include this in a professional portfolio and you're trying to get a job, I think this is not going to be received well. You know, pros have their own way of drawing, and they're going to be very tuned into this style and what's correct and what's incorrect about it. I think it's fine to show these things, that you have some sense for how the building goes together, and there's a there's an abstraction to this that I like that is not represented here. So I would probably eliminate that. And then I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here to page 50. This one here, I see a lot of exuberance in this school project. I like this. You know, I don't know, this looks like it was done quite a number of years ago, so maybe this doesn't apply to where you're headed, but it's got some texture and energy in it that I think is missing in the other parts. If we come down to page 61, I realize you've got some drawing things in here, and I want to jump to page 61 because this page here on the right side, I would say this is what you should be striving for in your portfolio right now. Clearly, you have some technical abilities here. You can put together a model. This is showing some graphical understanding of composition and scale and, you know, your technical proficiency. I think you should look to make your portfolio like this, but not 63 pages. And if we go to page 63, I like this lower right-hand image because it editorializes, like I can see maybe who you are in this picture, as opposed to this image, you know, which is, I'm just not seeing the same kind of editorial viewpoint, and these as well. So we spent some time on this one. My advice for you, Nitish, would be to edit pretty strongly. Now I'm going to come back and I'm going to share my other screen. Let's see if we can get there. Okay. Bear with me. Okay, this portfolio I think is an absolute standout portfolio, and this is Yevgeny. He's a recent graduate and says finding a job is very hard, and I just can't believe you haven't found a job. I hope you found a job by now, Yevgeny. I appreciate you sharing your work. This is a beautiful portfolio. His overall portfolio is 30 pages. Now we talked about, you know, what an ideal portfolio length would be. I think this is shooting right around that mark. 30 pages is still a lot to wade through, but the way he's organized it is it's very logical. It makes a lot of sense to me. So we open with, you know, I have a limited sort of cover page, and then we're moving into his CV, which is highly graphical, nicely organized. I love all the information here. Clearly you've got experience and you have a personal statement, which I could take or leave, but this is great. Great opening. Context here. Now I'm assuming this is sort of like a table of contents. And that's fine if you want to keep it in. We could also probably pare that down a little bit. I see this is your sort of personal design statement, and so I like seeing that. And then we're moving right into these projects, and these projects there's basically 3 projects, and that's called out here: the Art Studio, the Old Oak Common Contemporary, and the Dynamic Shading System. Great way to break this down. Open with a really strong image. Like, I mean, I know this is a rendering, but it's so hard to tell. Is it a rendering or is it real? I mean, that's just brilliant. It's beautiful. So I want to also say that he's one of the few people who, actually the only people who submitted with a bit.ly link, and you can see that in this here. The link to his portfolio is a bit.ly link, so bit.ly, and that allows him to track and see who's clicking on his portfolio link. So if you send your portfolio out to somebody and you really want to know if they're looking at it, you can use bit.ly to track that. So smart, good for you for doing that. Let's dig into this here. So I love these computer renderings here. There is a lot of text here, but when it's balanced, you know, if I have a block of text as a compositional element balanced against these really beautiful renderings, like, I mean, I need to read a sentence or two of here to understand what's going on, and I think it's, you know, it's not hard to figure that out. Beautiful diagrams. Come to Old Oak Common Contemporary here. I can really sense who you are in this portfolio. Like, I know what I'm getting with this. I mean, just beautiful compositions, like strong design sense. You know how to compose things graphically on a page. There's a lot of diagrams here, and I think if we get to the end of this and we're seeing a lot of the same thing, it becomes, you know, a little bit too much of the same thing. And so my recommendations for you on this portfolio, this dynamic shading project, very cool. You know, like, I don't totally understand all of this, but in some ways I don't have to, because the portfolio is just kind of opening the door. you know, I see that I'm interested in you as the designer, and I see how the depth and breadth of ideas here, and I just want to learn more. So I think in terms of how a portfolio functions, I mean, your portfolio could be 10 pages. Yours happens to be 30, and it works because, you know, I've seen everything I need to know to take the next step with you. I'm a little confused by this one. It looks like there are no sketches in here, but, you know, and I'm telling you maybe to eliminate these 2 pages because they feel a little, I'm not sure what they are necessarily, or and the thank you necessarily, but I kind of want to see more hand sketches, more handwork throughout the portfolio somehow, because there is a sameness to some of this stuff. But honestly, that's a nitpicky detail here. It's just a beautiful portfolio. You've done a fantastic job. I think if you were to transition this into a website, you know, maybe more of a professional website, I could see, especially with this dynamic shading system project here, you know, exploiting video, and that's something that could add another dimension to this, you know, that's not being represented here. But just fantastic job. I mean, good luck on your job search. I just can't believe that you haven't found a job quite yet. And try and include some more sketches if you think it's appropriate. So great, thank you for sharing that. The next. So it looks like we have a couple of questions here. How does a university portfolio differ from a professional one? I mentioned this a little bit in the video, but I'll kind of touch on it again. Let me get back to my screen so I can talk to you here. Bear with me just one moment. Okay. Sorry, guys. Switching over here. Professional portfolio differs from a university portfolio in that a professional portfolio is probably going to have built work in it. I'm assuming that you transition from school, which is a lot of academic work, and we're seeing some here on the screen right now, you know, which is done in a vacuum. It's not subject to real world constraints necessarily, code conditions, things like that. And a professional portfolio is used to, you know, sort of engage your clients. And so it's going to have different range of work in it. If a professional portfolio consists of all theoretical projects, it's going to be really hard to get a job, I think, to pick up clients. Someone else asked, how do you feel about white plans overlaid on the renderings? Some find them hard to read. I totally agree with that. I think that graphical style is a little confusing for me. So yeah, I'd probably back off on that. I think we talked about that a little bit. Okay, so the next portfolio we're into is Eduardo from Mexico. He graduated 2 years ago, and he's hoping to get his MArch in the US. So we're not quite to a professional portfolio here. His portfolio is 75 pages. I think this might top them all. This is a really long portfolio. And Eduardo, you have some fantastic work, and you're leading with really strong work here. I just want you to edit it down to work. And I think you're doing the right thing here, leading with your strongest project. I mean, this is an incredible project, and it's only a school type project. But you know what's great about this that I love is you have this combination of hand sketches, you've got some computer models and renderings, and then you've got some photographs, and you know it's all overlaid and overlapping, and it's information presented in a really strong graphical style that I can understand. I don't have to know everything about this project to really understand how you think about design. So I think that's fantastic. Move on to project number 2 here. Very strong work. This is an equal vein. I think these two are on equal planes. I mean, you've got an incredible site. You've got a kind of a cool project idea. You know, you've got these very elemental forms. You know, what's not to love here? I mean, just beautiful work. Like this image to me, fantastic. Like if this portfolio was just nothing but these little bundles, I'd be totally happy with this. I want you to check for spelling errors. I did find some in your portfolio, things like envelop or envelope. You got to be careful of those things. It's kind of a minor thing, but there are a couple other things. I do love, you know, your mix of hand graphics, computer renderings. Just the level of information here is fantastic. As we get into this project, the library project, this sort of digital library project and the museum project, I think these suffer a little bit from information overwhelm. Like there is a lot here. And I think this is part of the reason why your portfolio is getting so long, is because we have all of this information. And I'm just viewing this on the screen here. Beautiful, but I don't have any sense for what the plan organization is here. And I think this is the one place where you really need to think about editorializing. Tell me what's important. Like if this plan were a full bleed on both the pages, that would be enough. Tell me about the organization. How did you get here? What's the process? Show me what's important and leave everything else out. I don't think these renderings are nearly as strong as your other renderings in the portfolio, and so I would think about editing this one down. This is nice because it provides a different level of detail than we had that I'm seeing elsewhere in the project, and beautiful rendering on the right side here for sure. Okay, and someone asked, can we share portfolio links? And I'm guessing that's up to the owner. So if people are here with their portfolios, please write in the chat that yes, you are comfortable sharing, or no, you're not. I'll leave that up to them. We have the next project here, this museum. This falls in the same category. A little bit of information overload, like beautiful diagrams. I mean, these could be in any professional magazine. Like, congratulations, and just like fantastic work. But it's too much. So figure out what you want to show. I think images like this are really strong. I think you need to think about your line work here. Think about emphasizing, you've got nice bold lines, but they're in the reinforcing. So put that in the edge of this, the cut lines here, and make this a really strong section. I love this. Whereas before I said don't include a lot of these structural details. Here, it's convincing, it's believable, it's arranged in a really strong graphic way. And fantastic. So good work. Punch that up a little bit. This project, the house, again, I'm not sure you need it. Like when I see a render like this guy looks like he's there's some criminal activity happening here. I would sort of think about maybe culling this one. I'm not sure it's saying anything different than your other projects are, and I think your other projects say it a little more convincingly. We got some. There are some funny editorial things in here, so congratulations. Good, beautiful job, Eduardo. If I had any critique for you, I would say, let's condense this thing, let's edit it, add some physical models. Do you have any physical study models? Any built work? Do you have any like furniture pieces? I mean, just anything to give it some texture and variety, I think would be really interesting. I think that would level it up. Okay, so. Let's move on to Nadim. Now, I'm hoping people can see Nadim's portfolio, so let me know in the chat if you can't. It's in the same window. So Nadim here, let's see, sent me a kind email. He said he appreciates the sense of community on the channel, which is really fantastic to hear. It wouldn't be a community without you guys, so thank you all for continuing to be part of it. And let's kind of dig into his portfolio here. It's 46 pages, so it's not short. But it's not the longest one we've seen. Nadim, I want you to look at your portfolio bound, your margins here. It looks like stuff is getting cut off, and you got to really pay attention to that. I would get rid of this personal statement. There's a lot of information here. If you're looking to edit things, I don't think that's saying what you want it to say. Check your work experience here. You got to spell architectural right, and I know there's spell check. There's some other spelling errors in here, so just make sure you're on top of that stuff. That's really important. Okay, so we come into a number of different projects here, and they're all linked up, which is nice. I think this, here I think maybe you've edited a little bit to a fault. So we have, a lot of projects, and we don't go very deep on any of them. So we have, some nice computer renderings. I can see you're very skilled at these kind of things, but then we're squishing down information that I would, I'd be interested in the section or want to know more about the plans, and then we flip to the next project. So it's like, it's almost, we just need a little more depth on some of these projects, and I would recommend that you just do some heavy editing on this and only go for what you think are your strongest projects and your strongest work. Again, I think we're back to maybe there's a sameness to some of this stuff. So figure out what is saying what you want it to say the strongest, and edit the other stuff out. You don't have to load up your portfolio. It doesn't have to be 10 projects. And you saw, that project a couple months back where we just had 3 projects, really strong projects, and that's very impactful. I appreciate that you're trying to add a range of things. You've got a model here, but I'm not sure it's saying all the things you need it to say. I wouldn't include the chess table here. I don't think it's relevant to what you're doing. By contrast, I think these sketches are just phenomenal. Like, I don't know why these aren't upfront opening sketches. Lead with your strongest work, and I realize, maybe this isn't the kind of thing that you're doing anymore, but graphically on this page, I would get rid of the black in the center. I would make the whole center white, and I would do black text, and I would really let these drawings do the work and really sing. I mean, just those are phenomenal drawings. I mean, so play that up. Lead with your strongest work. I think this is a cool project. I don't totally understand it, but like different texture than your other work. Like, get this thing up front. And it's 2016, so it's recent work. I would get that right up front. I'm not sure I understand this. The Photoshop things. I think if you say you know how to Photoshop render, and I see in your renderings that you do, it's enough to do that. You don't have to include this stuff here. And the photography, kind of up to you whether you include it. Like, I think these 2 images are beautiful. I think if you're going to include any architectural stuff, make sure you have your verticals figured out. That's a pretty strong organizing factor in that. So Nadeem, good work. Do some editing, please. And then I think you'll have a fantastic portfolio. Okay, let's move on here. We're going to go to a professional website, so we get to look at a professional portfolio. This is my friend from Morocco Design. This is Rodrigo. He's from Bogota, Colombia, and he also runs a YouTube channel. So it's great hearing from you, Rodrigo. You've been a longtime supporter of the channel, and I know you've read my books, and I know you're implementing some of the tactics in there. And so we're going to, kind of walk through your site here. The idea with a professional site, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier, is you're gathering new clients, so you really have to figure out what's the messaging for your client. And I think you have pretty consistent messaging here. If we go back to the splash screen here, you're saying the design of spaces that promote creativity and innovation. And so if you're putting this as your tagline, I'm going to be looking for that in the entire portfolio through here. And I do think that comes through. I think there's 2 places where I'm seeing right here that it's not speaking to that. And I think it's this car show thing here. And it's not to say it's not a good project and your renderings aren't good. I just don't think it fits with that message that you're trying to put forth, and the kind of clients maybe that you're going for. This is there's a jewelry designer here, and like, to me, that fits with exactly what you just told me on this home page. You're designing spaces that promote creativity and innovation, and you've even used that as your splash image here. So I'm looking for that in everything. Let's go back to that home page just for a second. So we have this button that says how to draw as an architect. And I think, because you have a YouTube channel and because you do a lot of drawing, I would look for a way to pull more people into this. And I realize this is a translation, so this is obviously in Spanish, and I'm translating it into English, so maybe it says something slightly different. But as I read it, I would want this to say, watch my creative process, and then have it link out to one of the videos where you're sketching. I think that might draw more people into that, rather than the way it's worded now, where it's like, oh, okay, this is only for architects. So it's a minor thing, but I think if you're looking to exploit the homepage, this is really where most people are going to be visiting, and then they're going to be leaving from here. They're going to be looking at your work, and they'll be leaving from there. So good projects here. I think this is the other project that I would say, I mean, it's a strong project. This is amazing space. It's casino space. Clearly they have money to spend on, they're doing interesting things. But is this really the creative, innovative space model that you're talking about on the homepage? I'm not sure that it is. Like, cool project, but like, to me, it's more of these other spaces here that you're showing off in your portfolio. Let's go down. Let's look at the contact page here. So, I really want this to be kind of your about page, because you don't have an about page necessarily. I mean, we have, maybe this is the Rocco design, but we have a Rocco, and then the contact page. So I'm not sure, I'd probably combine these into one. And here we have a sort of animated GIF file. Really, I want this to be like a photo of you. I'd love it to be, in your workspace. We're talking about the design of spaces that promote creativity and innovation. Like, let's see your space. Let's see the space that you're being creative in. And I know you have videos, so I'm sure you can repurpose something like that. Okay, so we have an approach thing here, and so we get to see Rodrigo Montoya, and maybe we have a photo of you. We don't actually. Okay, sorry about that. So I guess I'm looking for that. I'm looking for more of a personal connection. Who am I going to get when I hire you? Let's see. We talked about the raw code page. Kind of that's got a little bit of a strange navigation experience here. And the Tumblr link, I'm not sure that you need it necessarily. I'm not sure it contributes to what you're going for. In general, I tell people you want them to stay on your homepage. You want to be creating deep links within your website navigation here. You've got a very consistent graphic style, so I think that comes clearly through. It's accessible, it's warm, and I think it's speaking to your target market. So I hope you're getting lots of work out of your site, and thanks for submitting your site here. And the next one we're going to move on to is Ben's, and he's hoping to go to UT Austin here in the U.S. And this is his portfolio. His portfolio is 42 pages long. We're coming into the sort of opening screen here. Talked about this a little bit in the video, relevant work experience. Unless you're really focused on medical work and that kind of thing, I'm not sure I'd include this. And is this really construction, or is it supposed to be construction? I couldn't really tell if this was maybe some kind of a program that you were volunteering for. Kind of interesting. I'd play up the volunteer work if it's related to architecture and design and those kinds of things. And again, the objective statement, we've talked about this in other portfolios. I'm not sure I'd include that here necessarily. I was never really a fan of that kind of thing. Okay, so we're going to come to the next page here. We have some acknowledgments, and I think it's fine to include this kind of thing. Make sure that you've spell checked everything. We have some spelling problems here and capitalization issues. If you're going to include this, I'd probably include it at the end. You want to be thinking about someone's opening your portfolio for the first time. Okay, I expect the CV, but I don't want a lot of filler in between that and when I start getting to the work. And to me, this is getting in the way just a little bit. Again, it's only my personal take on it. Okay, so we come to this strong graphic image here. And I'll just talk about this for a second. I like the strong black and white graphic, but I think that your model building skills aren't quite up to your other graphic skills. And please take this as constructive criticism. I know building models is hard, and it's certainly not for everyone. But if you're going to put a large image of it here, and you're going to put it in front of other architects, they're probably going to look at the details of it, and they're going to think something about it. So, whatever you put up front, just make sure it's your strongest and best work. And I do think, like, graphically, I love this stuff. Something about line weights, rendering, human scale, so that it all makes sense. If this were a study model, which I'm guessing it's not, it's totally forgivable to have it be rough, but to me it looks like maybe it's a presentation model. So again, not meant to be harsh, but I just want to let you know how I perceive it. Loving the graphics here. Like, this feels good to me. This feels like a study model. Like, I don't care if there's blue spots on it. It feels like I understand the tessellation idea. As we come to the theater, and you are using the English spelling of theater, and I don't know if that's intentional because of the site or something else, but just be careful of that. We have an opening model shot here again, and it's a very contrasty image. We got some model shots here again, but as I work through the project and I come to, like, this image is fantastic. These sort of Stephen Hall-esque watercolors, like, these are really lyrical and beautiful. Take these and put these up front, like, lead with this, because even if you decide to keep this previous image, and I see what you're doing, you're trying to link every opening page has a model shot on it, and it's black and white, but I think you can lead with a stronger graphic and have it be more successful. On this page, bring those watercolors in, and that'll really punch this up. And I'm not sure that I'd include these model shots here. I might break up the renderings in a couple of different spots. Beautiful, beautiful work there. This one feels like a study model, so like totally appreciate it. I like that. And I like this inclusion of some furniture elements. Here we have like a change in texture and scale here. I'm not sure this is your strongest or best sketch. Like maybe this stuff, keep that stuff, or blow this image up a little bit. And here you're mixing it up. Great. Like I like the computer renderings and things like that here. Great comment. Like this is a nice composition. I feel like this work that we're getting into deeper in the portfolio is a little bit, graphically, it's a little stronger. So let's, think about prioritizing that. Just want to speak about this page for a minute. As I look at you have some text overlay. I think this is refugium. So just be careful when you have these really contrasty images. You might want to come into these photographs and kind of bump up the shadows a little bit if you use Lightroom at all. Work on the exposure on these. They're very powerful, but I'm not sure they're saying everything you want them to say. And then when we get problems with text overlay, you just have to be careful. So I would say, include only your best work in this stuff. These model shots are really dark. I can't tell what's going on here. And the renderings, mess with your contrast. I'm assuming this wasn't totally intentional. You want to, play with your contrast. You want these to be really strong images. Think about layering in some fog and things like that to really make these people feel like they're not so pasted on. Play down the birds a little bit. I see at the end here, you've got some, sketches. Let's make sure it's just kind of thought about and like, I love your watercolors. Clearly you enjoy doing watercolors, but make sure it feels like it's an integrated part of, the portfolio, basically. I think more sketches and more process work here would help, and I know in school, process is what you're focused on. It's what you're learning to do. And so it's what I would expect in a portfolio from someone coming out of school. So I'm left wanting more in the process department on this one, love this kind of stuff, but show me some of the mess behind it. That's all, not necessarily everything as a finished product. All right, thanks for submitting your work. I really do appreciate it. Okay, this next portfolio here, super strong. We have one more after this that, I'm really excited to show you guys. And I love this portfolio. And I think the contrast between this one and the next one is interesting because this is an example of someone who is now out of school. They have their master's in architecture. This is Janelle. I hope I'm saying your name right, from New Zealand. And he submitted it saying that, this is the one that landed him a job before he even graduated. So congratulations. I mean, I can clearly see why. It's 59 pages, so it's a little longer than what I think is appropriate, but who am I to say? I mean, he got a job out of it. So fantastic work. So we have an opening CV. That's good. I want you to spell check that because there's a few grammatical things on that page that stood out to me. It could be a cultural thing too. I don't know. My U.S. English versus your New Zealand English. We may just have different terms for things. So we have basically 5 projects in here. I think you're leading with your strongest project, and in all these portfolios, you guys, make sure you're leading with your strongest work because sometimes that's all people are going to look at. That's your opening shot here. You have this sort of tone, this color tone of red in this project, which I think is interesting. I think you have to be careful when you get to images like this. So this feels a little, it feels a little contrived to me. I see what you're doing. You have this sort of circular reference that's happening throughout the portfolio, but once it overlays with red text is particularly difficult to read. But I mean, great graphical style. This is like your own graphical style. Like I love it. And you've done a ton of work here. The hard part I have with these is, I just want to dig deeper into these images. Some of these models, I just want to, zoom right in and see what's happening, and the level of detail as when I do that, it isn't there. But it's a limitation of the online portfolio for sure. But beautiful work here, and I realize some of this stuff is getting a little bit nitpicky when it comes down to it. This is your second project here. A lot of information. Again, I think we're starting to see some of the same information. And this, again, I'm going to be a little nitpicky here, but to me, when the birds start reading the same as the people, like I think you have to start rethinking it. And so here they're getting a little heavy. It's a little heavy on the birds for me. That's all. I might, instead of showing the level 6 and 7 plan, like I'm not sure what the difference between level 4 and level 7 is. tell me the story that you want me to understand. Paint the narrative for me. But beautiful project. Here, I'd rather have full bleed images rather than I'd sort of abandon this circular gimmick. But again, so it's my personal preference. I see what you're doing here. And you've got this kind of red background, which kind of abstracts this, it takes it more in the realm of a school project as opposed to something that's realistic. We definitely still have the birds flying through here. But this is kind of cool how you're really playing with these lines, these orientation lines in your portfolio. I mean, just, wow, it's pretty phenomenal work. I definitely know the designer I'm getting when I'm seeing it here. Okay, as I come to this last project, I'd probably call this one. We're already at a big portfolio, and I'm seeing a lot of the same stuff here. And so what's missing for me here is there's kind of a gap between the beautiful rendered image that I see here and like how you got there. And so, as I said before, like school is about figuring out process. And I feel like your portfolio is an excellent opportunity, especially coming right out of school, to show your process. And I don't see that here as much. I guess the renderings are so well done, but the sameness there, there's a sameness there, and I feel like if you did have some sketches to sort of pepper throughout it, it would just be phenomenal. It would just be an upgrade. And I think that's kind of what you were saying to me when you wrote me that email, like, hey, this is probably constructive criticism is great, but it's probably not going to help me as much because I have a job now and I'm focused on building my portfolio of built work. And I do appreciate that. I think, everyone can learn from adding process to their portfolios. So let's see. Let's go the last portfolio. This one was submitted by Apollo, who writes, I'm not an architecture student, but I really want to be someday. Right now I'm preparing for my architecture school audition, which I hadn't realized. I believe, based on the address here, I think you're from Norway, Apollo. I didn't realize they had auditions for architecture school. I'm kind of glad they didn't have that when I was applying to schools. But I was so impressed with this portfolio, and I have to say, so this is a website, and I think there's a lot of ways you can improve this website, but the things that I love about this is so different than the other portfolios we looked at today, and that's not belittling those in any way, but I think I want to point this portfolio out as a pattern break, and I think everyone pays attention to pattern breaks because we're used to looking at architecture portfolios, we're used to thinking about things in a certain way, and then something comes along and you go, oh wow, this is just different. And I think what I love about this project in particular, so this is a chicken house. I mean, it doesn't get any more humble or basic than this little farm structure. It's not even for people, it's for animals. But I can see so many things embedded in this. This is just a standout piece of work. The best things about architecture, for me, are there's a clearly defined problem and it's solved elegantly. And I think there's 1,000 more things you could do with this. Like you could add probably 100 more images. You could show me some chickens in here. But I'm so impressed by the fact that you took this idea. I see there's a sketch here. There's this idea. You've iterated in some model form. You've built a little site model. You've taken out the screws and the studs, and you built a computer model that says everything. And then you built the real thing. I mean, if this isn't a real chicken house, you've totally fooled me, because I have to believe you built this. It's beautiful, and it says so much about who you are. I see this image and I see it juxtaposed against this, which is you crafting this landscape model out of a block of oak. I see your hand in it. That's enough. I don't have to see a photo of you. I mean, great to see a photo of you somewhere on the site, but I see that you're thinking about this. There's a level of craft that's going into this, and then you're not afraid of the technical skill. And so I think as architects, we look to make really highly polished things all the time, and we want to make our work beautiful and presentable in every possible way. But this is proof that, man, it's really the work that stands out. It's the work is the important stuff, and the packaging that you put around it is so much less important. And I mean, you guys, if you've listened to the channel for any period of time, know that I'm a model nut. And so, you know, I look at a model differently than most people. And so these kind of things really excite me. But there's basically, you know, some beautiful things about this. I think there's a lot of things you can improve about it. I think for as beautiful as this little site model is, you know, put the same level of craft and care and thought into this model here. You know, build the sticks out of mahogany or oak, you know, whatever you're using, you know, or some, you know, contrasting wood, maybe it's balsa or something else, you know, but invest that same care into this model. And I think you just have, I mean, an amazing thing. One of my critiques of this is it's got a moving roof and wall section, but it's not totally, it wasn't totally apparent to me initially. And I see it here, the roof is in one spot and then we're moving the roof over to another spot. And so I can see there's some movement there. I would do it kind of time-lapse style, and I think you have the space to do that. You know, so that's the reading pavilion. I think you could add some simple boarding and planks and things like that, and punch up the photography a little bit there. Then I want to touch on this one, which I think is so cool, this tent project. You know, this adds a different texture and a real-world dimension to your work, and I think most practicing architects can really relate to this. You know, we all face the reality of building every day, and I feel like looking at this, like you've addressed this somehow. And I don't fully understand it, and I think, you know, one of the things you can do to improve your site is to add some just basic narrative to this. You know, tell me what's going on. Like, I don't understand if you've solved a problem that's worth solving if you haven't told me what you're trying to do here. But, you know, just inherently, I'm trusting that you are, because I'm looking at this going, wow, who sets up these little triangles and then lights them and photographs them in the woods? I mean, it's really interesting. Your about page, like, this is the most minimal about page I've ever seen. So congrats. I think John Pawson would be totally impressed, but I definitely I'd want to see more of you here. And obviously you said you just started working on this, and if you can't tell, I'm totally impressed. I'm going to give you a couple more tips here. The site is totally slow to load, so look at your images and think about optimizing them so you can see how long it took to load. I'm on a pretty slow internet connection, but you got to improve that. Your page titles, and you probably can't see it there, but you have a question mark P equals 1119, and that's sort of the default WordPress thing. Change that to in your reading and writing section so that you can capture more search traffic, because, you know, the reason for building a website is so that people can see you out in the world. And you know, I think you definitely need to take advantage of any SEO that you possibly can. So the pattern break, man, it worked on me, and so I think everyone can learn from that, just as a general rule. Let's come back here. Okay, so that was the last portfolio, and thank you, Apollo, for doing that. I actually don't know how old you are. I know you're not in architecture school, but I would love to know where that came from, the idea to do that. I think, you know, I have a couple of questions here, tips for a 13-year-old, and, you know, all I can say is keep studying, reading books, paying attention to architecture, traveling the world, picking up Frank Ching's Form, Space, and Order, which I think is just fantastic work. It's one of those books that I picked up when I was younger and just fell in love with the drawing style and the, you know, drawing conventions he has. Make things. I mean, that's my advice for 13-year-olds to 99-year-olds, however old you are. Just go out in the world and make things, and, you know, experience the world, experience architecture. Architecture, it's easy to study things in books, but, you know, the primary goal of architecture is to build habitable space for humans. And, you know, you can do so much education. You can educate yourself so well by going and visiting, you know, great architecture and bad architecture too. You know, learn as much about things that that you don't like as things that you do. I see there's some questions, I guess, about some of the rendering programs that people are using in the portfolios. Hopefully people have filled in on the chat on that, because I don't know what individuals are using. I use just basic SketchUp and the Maxwell plugin for SketchUp. I don't do a lot of rendering. If I have high-powered rendering to do, I'll sort of farm it out. Equally, there's 3ds Max. I noticed in a lot of the portfolios, people have 3ds Max, so sort of assuming that, and Lumion, things like that. People are filling in there. And then there's a question, how does one prepare for their first year of architecture, say the summer before? Oh man. You know, I don't think you have to prepare for architecture school. I think architecture school is unique in that you're put into a room and a studio with a whole bunch of other people, learning a number of things that you're not going to learn on your own. So it's that particular environment that forces you to learn how to design and interact with people and come up with ideas and really see the world through a different lens. You know, and I think getting out there and experiencing the world and you know, that can prepare you for architecture school, but it's going to be kind of a life-changing experience. And I don't think you need to prepare for those things. I think those, you know, part of the beauty of architecture school is that it happens, and it happens in a very distinct way as a sort of synergy between you and your professors and the people who are sitting next to you in studio. And there's nothing anyone I feel like could have prepared me for architecture school. You know, the sleepless nights and all of those kind of things, like that's just kind of fun. That's just kind of preparing you for the dedication that you're going to have if you really do want to pursue this as a career, a full-time career, to thinking about space and making things. So I hope that answered your question. And I do hope that the portfolio review was helpful. You know, we've gone on here almost an hour, and we do have sun shining here in Maine for the first time in a long time, and so I'm going to get out with my family and hopefully enjoy the rest of my Sunday. I do thank you guys for all the support on the channel. You know, I hope you know, this was helpful. Please let me know. Shoot me an email, eric@30by40.com. If this was helpful, you know, if there are other things that you want to see out of the channel. Obviously, if you guys are taking the time on your weekend to spend time here on the live stream, you have an interest in vested interest in the channel, and as do I. And you know, I want to be able to serve you guys, and so you know, letting me know what's working, what's not working, what you could use more of, what you could use less of, is super helpful to me. And if you can like this video, that helps me with YouTube. And you know, I don't get paid for doing these things. I really enjoy helping people, and so that's kind of that's how I approach this. But liking is the currency of YouTube, and so I appreciate if you can help me out with a like there. And you know, thanks for hanging out. All right, cheers, guys.